Welcome, everybody, to the happy hour with Adam Glatt. We are live streaming today, but you're probably watching this on recording because I don't think we actually told anybody where we were live streaming. We have as a guest today Jose Gutierrez, who has been on the Mountain View Whisman School District Board for 5 years now, and he's also running for City Council this year. So welcome, Jose.
Adam, glad to be here at the happy hour. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. So I want to know how you came to be on the school board. Like, why did you want to be on the school board? Like, do you have kids? Like, what drove you to this? Like, why?
To the madness of politics. No, I totally get the question. I get that all the time. Well, someone had found out that when I went to West Valley College before transferring to Santa Clara University, I was student trustee at West Valley. And so there was an opening at the school board because one of the trustees had resigned. And I was approached to see if I was interested since I had kids in the district. I have two girls. And at that time, I wasn't too sure. But then I figured once I knew what the district was facing in terms of its current challenges and what it faced on that school board at that time, I thought, what the heck? Let's try this. Let's see what happens. There were 11 candidates that applied, including some former council members like Tom Means. And in the end, I was the lucky one that they selected to be appointed for that one-year spot. That led then to me running again in 2016 to sort of 4-year term, which is about to end next month in November.
All right. And have you enjoyed your time in the political arena?
You know, we've done a lot. So I've enjoyed my time, though. I have to be honest. It's not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of research involved, a lot of hours that you have to spend doing reading of the packets of the issues, understanding those, speaking to council or attorneys at the district, with the superintendent as well. A lot of one-on-one meetings, and then subcommittee meetings also take time, right? But you have to factor that in with also meeting parents in different schools around the city. And you have to remember, a lot of people may recognize you. So if you're at Target or Walmart or even Safeway shopping, it's been known for people to come to me and ask me, hey, I've got this question about this issue. Can you help me? And of course, you're going to help, right? Of course, you're going to take the time to answer those questions. And I just appreciate that people take interest in wanting to know what the school board thinks about current issues, or just trying to find out what those issues are for persons that have problems with their children in school, or just who want to share their opinions about what we can do better.
Yeah, I would imagine like most parents are probably pretty far away from the big picture of the school and instead focused on their children and how that must be interesting to even deal with the question that they have.
Oh, sure, because everything is so personal. And I remember one of the first pieces of advice that I received from Joe Smitty, Supervisor Smitty. Joe was nice because to remember about his days when he started in politics, and he began at the school board level. And what he said was it was the toughest job he ever had because everything is so personal for the parents. When it affects their children's education, that is such a personal issue and journey that everything is very important and has to be taken care of at that moment, at that time, unbeknownst to them that there's also a big picture involved in terms of public education and how that affects their particular child too.
Yeah. So once you entered the school board, like, was there any big surprise for you? Did you like was there something you were expecting that it wasn't like that, or
Yeah, there were several things. Actually, the first thing I remember that took me off by surprise was just that the Measure G bond money that had just been passed a few years before, like 2 years before, had not been spent. And that's an issue because, as you may or may not know, each year that you don't invest your money in construction, spend your money in that way, costs for construction will increase by 10% per year. So you lose purchasing power overall, and that's not a good thing to be in, right? A good spot to be in. So I made it a priority to work with the school board and with the superintendent to get these projects prioritized and submitted to the state for permission to construct, so that we can have these changes affect every single school site accordingly and with a proper timeline. Also taking advantage of the monies that we had, so that we wouldn't lose as much purchasing power as we already had. So being able to make that type of a difference and working with the board to make that happen was a shocker, but also a good starting point for us to work together as a team. And the other issue was just board communication. One of the reasons why Trustee Chang had resigned was because there's another member on the board that proved to be a challenge to deal with on on the board of trustees, and it caused a lot of stress and tension, not just with the board members themselves, but also with the superintendent, with members of our community in the school district, and with the community as a whole. So trying to bring that back together to where it could be, and what we can accept to agree to disagree and work like a team to get things done. That was also a challenge that I thought would be easier to take on, but throughout time, it became a lot more of a natural process for us to work with like that, as opposed to just have the tension be there all the time.
Right. I could see that being a challenge. I broadcast the city council meetings for both Mountain View and Sunnyvale, and I've seen that, like, where people have different the council members, where they have different opinions, like they, how they choose to work together or not to work together is always very public and very interesting to watch.
Oh, for sure.
I'm sure there's much more behind the scenes as well.
Oh, yeah. And the closed sessions. I mean, in the closed sessions, when we would just remember my first year, I still had that one controversial board member. And in closed session, obviously, I won't share what we talked about at that time, but that's our chance to be able to speak freely amongst ourselves about the issues or certain things that we're talking about at that time, I should say. And, you don't hold back. You're respectful, but you make sure that you present your position in a professional way, firm, but respectful. And when you go back out in public, you want to do the same thing there. And slowly but surely, it started working to our advantage to then have that person buy into this type of approach. And that helped a lot.
Okay. So I want to talk about something a little bit different. So I've been reading a little bit about this achievement gap, and I'm wondering, it's probably best in your own words, like can you explain for the layman, like, what is an achievement gap, and like how was that an issue that the school district needed to deal with?
Oh, and it's not just our district. I'm glad you asked that question. It's an issue that the state of California has been trying to deal with for the past 25, 35, 45 years. Ever since I was a kid, I remember there was an achievement gap. And basically what that means is that for the most part, unfortunately, underrepresented groups like Chicano, Latino, Mexican American, first generation English language learners that are in the country fall behind in the academic standards that we have assessed to be a norm for each grade level. And when that happens, each year that they don't make it to that standard, they keep falling behind. And when that happens, there's a gap that starts to increase, right? And it starts first in preschool, to be honest with you, because there's something called a word gap. And that means that by the time children make it to kindergarten, some kids, because of their parental experience and having been exposed to our educational system, or having been graduates of that, plus having or holding a university degree of some sort or a professional degree after that, their vocabulary is so much more expansive, right? Whereas first generation English language learners, they don't have that advantage, right? They have to start from scratch, from the bottom up, and learning vocabulary. So by the time they make it to kindergarten, that word gap is an issue. And so you couple that with English language learners throughout the years, when they don't reclassify to become mainstream students where they're proficient in English and can do work in mainstream classes without the assistance of having someone explain, or as a teacher's aide, or the teacher, her or himself, what the subject matter is in their native language. That's an issue too. And that disparity among performance within the students at each school site is the achievement gap. So we've tried to tackle that in different ways. The last 5 years, what we've been able to do is we looked at this reclassification system that we had in place. And what that means is that there's a test for English language learners to take. And that test was made of 3 parts. Now, when we analyzed it as a whole, we noticed that this test was difficult to the point where native English speaking students weren't able to do as well or even pass that test. Therefore, what would make us think that the English language learners who had less experience would be able to do well and perform well to the point where they would pass.
Right, and this is the test. This is the test that was put in place by.
It's something that was put in place by the district in partnership with best practices from the County Board of Education, and also the state of California. But in the end, the board determines what the test is going to look like. So once we discovered that this test was not equitable, then we changed the standards, not to reduce them, but to make it more fair. Once we did that, then we reclassified a higher number of students. The last 4 years, it's been a remarkable process, because not only have we seen an increase with them reclassified into mainstream classes, but we've also seen them succeed in mainstream classes, which is very important for us, right? So that tells us that, one, we're on the right track, that the change in the test was the right thing to do. But then two, it also helps us support the student once they've made that transition to the mainstream course, with behind the scenes tutoring and one-on-one help between teachers and the student, also involving parents to help out the student as well, to not forget to participate in their child's educational experience. So all in all, it's a positive and a step forward to try and close that achievement gap.
So you're leaving the school board this year, and I'm wondering like how that came to be, and then also like why you're not staying on for another 4 years, or rerunning, and then what is the top thing you would like to see continue for the school board as you?
Okay, sure. Yeah.
As you leave.
Yeah. So I've had 5 years on the school board, and it's been a fun, it's been a challenge, but it's been fun. We've made sure to prioritize that whatever district-wide problems we've had, we have a district-wide solution for it, right? The previous board wasn't able to work well together. Now we can agree to disagree, and we can move forward in trying to understand that difference of opinion is not confrontational or bad, but rather an opportunity to make change happen and move forward with that process. Now that we've had a superintendent in the district for 5 years, which is very different from what we had before with 2 and 3, we're in a good spot right now. So I thought I could make a difference at a higher level in terms of city council, and I figured we need more representation in the city to have voices that represent people that look like me. At this point in time, there's a great opportunity. As I was saying, I figured to make it. I figured to make a difference at the next level, which would be city council, and give it a shot, right? Because there's a couple of openings there. I've worked previously with some members of the city council on a prior project where we approved we worked together in a partnership between our school board and city council to get 144 apartment units available and strictly dedicated to Mountain View Whisman School District teachers and staff, plus setting 20 of those aside for employee staff of the city as well. So that type of partnership inspired me to try and make a difference at city council in that type of role. And that's why I figured, hey, let's give this a shot. Let's do it now. I've got a track record where we can point to some success stories and people have seen in the community how far we've come. So let's give this a shot and see what happens.
So speaking of the, so that sounds like that would be good for teachers. And I'm curious, like how the teacher experience has been, let's stick with prior to COVID right now. What improved for the teachers over the last 5 years?
Sure. So for one, morale. I know when you have a dysfunctional board, it's very hard for teachers in the community to look up to the board of trustees. And if they see discord there and tension and them not being able to work together as a team to make things happen, it affects morale like crazy. So we made it a priority to be able to work with one another and to move issues along that would affect outcomes for not only our students, but for teachers themselves. One of the first things that we started thinking about when we work with the teachers union, because we do this every year with our contract negotiations, is to improve their pay and also their health benefits. Before, under the previous administrations, there was 2 sets of health benefits that were provided to employees. If you were hired before a certain year, you had a certain type of option. If you were hired after that year, you had other options. What we decided to do was to say, hey, wait a minute, let's have one set of options for everybody, but let's have them get the most bang for the buck with what's offered now. And so we changed it to the point where any package that they choose to select, whether they're single or a family medical package, they do get more bang for the buck. There's more value there. So we increased and we improved those health benefits for them and for their family. And also pay. The last 5 years, we've had an increase of about 25% in salary. And you have to understand that that sounds a lot. And it is a lot, but we had to catch them up to the mean, the average of what teachers were getting paid within Santa Clara County. As to why that didn't happen before, I don't know. But since we had the chance to make that type of a difference on the board, we've done it. So that's how we try to be able to work with the teachers to change their outlook with morale and perspective, but also have them feel welcomed and part of the team, which also encouraged us to be able to work with the city council to talk about and get a solution for teacher housing, because a lot of our teachers drive about an hour and a half to 2 to and from work. They don't live in Mountain because it's too expensive. And if we can do something to have them be a part of our community, to work where they live and to make that type of a difference here, and help them also, and knowing that the rent for these units will be below market rates. That's huge because, as you know, below market rates for a 2-bedroom apartment nowadays goes about $4,000 in the new luxury apartment rentals. If you're lucky,
Right.
that's a lot of money
Right.
for a teacher who's just starting out. We need to do better, right? So
right. The salaries didn't increase that much, right? Like
exactly, and they're not in
as
the
far
private
as
sector; they're in the public sector, so it's limited. That's why we figured the rents that they'll have will be well below market rates, because then that gives them a chance to save money and pay off their school debt.
their school debt, right? Right. I hadn't even considered that. The like I am a software engineer, and yeah, I guess the challenges that I had were not quite the same as far as making money. I was in the right place at the right time, and
Yeah,
I feel very fortunate for that.
exactly, and that's one of the issues that we looked at too, right? Because everyone has a different path in life, and that's understandable. But we know housing and affordable housing is an issue in Mountain View and in Santa Clara County. So when we had the opportunity to partner up with the city council and developer Fort Bay, which is now Miramar Capital, we took advantage of that because we wanted to also reduce our carbon footprint. And so we're making a difference in the environment, but we're also making a difference in the lives of these teachers who are giving so much to the community with their time and expertise and teaching our children either in elementary or middle school. And I'm glad that this is working out for the positive, because this is now an example of what other school districts can do within Santa Clara County and in the state as a whole.
Now I'm curious. I have a friend I have several friends that teach, but they're not like officially full-time teachers. They're kind of in some kind of weird like part-time teacher role. I'm not really clear on what that is. Like, how much of the teachers in the district are not that full, like a full teacher?
A full-time teacher?
A full-time
Sure.
teacher. And then does any of these benefits apply to them?
As far as we know, the benefits will be applicable for our community in the school district that's employed by the district. Okay. Whether that's full-time or not, as far as I'm concerned, that doesn't make a difference.
Okay, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. So getting to this year has been particularly different. We have COVID-19, which is closed down the schools for a bit, and things have significantly changed. I've heard that they were working from, or the children were working and being taught at home, like with the parents being more involved. The teachers, I can only imagine what that's like for them. For everybody involved, and I'm curious, what approach the district, the board took to COVID-19, and where things are at now.
Sure. Yeah, great question. So distance learning is an experiment, and we saw in the beginning, we weren't too sure how long the closure was going to be. When we did ours, I believe it was March 12th or so when we decided to shut down the district and go towards distance learning. But at the beginning stages, we had no state mandate or best practices promoted by the state at that time. Secretary of Education, Tony Thurman, didn't have any best practices for school districts to follow. And so we had to come up with something on our own. And we realized in the beginning, as we started to develop this in partnership with the teachers, that this had never been done before. So how are we going to do this? And as we were working through the kinks in this process, we decided early on that the first trimester, when we actually had distance learning in full effect, it would be a pass or no credit option. We wouldn't assess grades, in other words, right? Because one, it's a pandemic, it's a special situation. Two, we're doing distance learning, and it's also new for the school district and for the teachers, plus the parents and the students themselves. So it's going to take some time to transition over. Once we finished with the end of the year, we moved into the summer, and we worked with the teachers union to improve distance learning, to make it more as if you were in class as much as possible. But we had some issues to deal with. And one of them is, we spoke about the achievement gap earlier. Well, there's also a technology gap, right? And what we did here is bridge the digital divide by partnering up with Google and the Mountain View Education Foundation, to the point where we received monies from them to be able to have a Chromebook for each and every single one of our students in the district. And that's huge. Now we're working to try and get Wi-Fi expanded to all students. free of charge so that they can also connect while they're on distance learning and not fall behind. But that's been a major issue because we've had to start from scratch and develop an in-house program for how distance learning can work. It's not for everybody, Adam. I mean, there's a lot of stress here because you've got parents working from home who are using their internet on Zoom calls. You also have the kids, and if you've got 2 or 3 or more kids at home, they're also using the bandwidth and they're meeting in Zoom classes. And everyone has their own trigger points of stress, right? So you can imagine that there will be a lot of dropped connections, a lot of stress at home sometimes because parents may be able to help out with their child's education at the end of the day. But everyone by then, they could be a little fried, right? Nerves are running high because everyone's in the same space, right? Very different scenario. But I also think that teachers or parents now understand the value of the teachers that we have and the quality that we have in the district, because it takes a special type of someone to be in that job and to perform at a high level to try and make a difference in a child's life, right? So those are the steps that we've tried to do to make it work, right? To improve it, because it's a experiment in progress.
Yeah, from what I've seen, like just in the work that I do with the TV station and being technical, like I've been IT for the station for a little bit, and what I've seen there is that everybody kind of has to do their own IT, and that's been just, you know, watching city council meetings, like some of the folks that not Mountain View City Council, but I will qualify this, but watching like how Sunnyvale City Council has adapted to that, and it just, like, everybody's involved in the television broadcast of the city council meeting, which is so odd. And I can only imagine, like, with children, you know, that now you have like your children, parents, teachers, all are involved in the technical aspect on top of the interacting with children and how to actually teach them in that environment. And that just seems like so many things, so many parts moving, and I can't even imagine. I don't have kids, and I feel a little bit fortunate at the moment that my life has been a little bit easier without them right now. So.
Well, and you bring up a good point too, because that was another challenge during these times. How do we provide technical assistance to our kids and to our teachers, right? Yeah. And so we understood there's also a language gap here. There's folks who need help. So we found persons that would help us within the school community, like our SCEFs, our student community engagement facilitators. And what they do is help us with our English language learners and their parents to troubleshoot and get online. And our lead technician, John Akers, has been a huge help. His team has done so much. They've improved the ability to communicate with not only English speakers, but non-English speakers as well. We hired 2 additional staff members to help him be on that team and problem solve these issues. And we're at the point now where we know the majority of our students are connected. If they need help, they know where to go. And we've worked together to try to get to this point. But it's been a challenge, and it's not easy.
Yeah. I can only imagine. Props to all the teachers and parents and students that are making this happen and keeping children like on the path towards education, right? Like that's one heck of a challenge. Do you see the distance learning like continuing past in the same capacity or similar capacity past COVID-19?
You know, I've been saying this all along, that this will help us as a blueprint for what may come next. I've mentioned this as a trustee and as a citizen in sharing my opinions with the rest of the community, that we should look at this as an opportunity, unfortunately, to understand that this may be the start of a trend. Let's say we're done with COVID-19 within the next 6 to 9 months, and we're fine for about a year and a half, but then another pandemic comes around. Well, by then, this can serve what we're going through now as a blueprint for distance learning and for what to do better as we move along in that process. So I look at this as just a step one in a journey that we don't know how many steps there will be in, but this will help us to better deal with the next pandemic if we were to get one. And the expectations then will be better understood, not only by the community and by parents, but also by the students themselves and our teachers, hoping that the community understands that as we move along in this process, we're still learning.
Yeah, see that. So now you're looking towards the city council. What do you like? So of all the things you've learned being on the school board, like what do you really want to bring to the city council? Like what's your where do you want to go with that? Why do you want to be on the city council?
No problem. It's a great segue. I mean, it's a great question because it gives us the opportunity to analyze what kind of difference have you made while on the school board. And I like to think that when I first began, I looked at it as a challenge. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew one thing for sure. You need to work together as a team to be able to make things happen. And you've got to be able to problem solve on the fly, but also be open to new ideas. It's not about personal glory. It's about making things happen for the betterment of the community. And our clients, our number one clients, are little kids. They're elementary school kids and middle school kids. And we're trying to help them succeed once they make that transition over to Mount Los Altos High. Along the way, I figured if I can do anything to get to that point where our students can succeed in that way, once they make the transition over to high school, hopefully they can move on then to college or a university and be successful. So what I learned was problem-solving skills are important. Being a team player is important. Understanding that difference of opinion is an opportunity for change is important. And being able to work well with the community as a whole, outside of our school district community, but also with city council, that's also very important because it's all about partnerships. There are issues that spill over from one area to the other. For example, teacher housing was the best example I can point to, where we realized it's not just an economic problem, but also a school district issue and a wider issue that affects affordable housing. So by being able to partner up with a developer and with city council to make affordable housing a reality for our school district teachers in this district and for employee staffs, not just for our district, but also for city council positions with their employees that they have as well, that's a step in the right direction because we worked in partnership to address a problem. And that's what we need to do also with other issues that affect us, like economic development, job creation, affordable housing for sure, community development, our ability to interact with police and our firefighters in a respectful and professional manner. Well, respect is given both ways. That's what I bring to the table, bringing that type of perspective and camaraderie and partnerships and positive outlook to be able to problem solve an issue and move forward together.
Great. And what would you like from the school board, like as you move on?
I'd like. Well, we've always said that this was going to be the first step, right? That the next board will take it to the next level, and because the standards are higher now and the expectations are higher, as well as they should be, and the community has been able to see that difference from 5 years ago to now. They've seen what the school district has done with organizing the way that they look at district-wide problems with district-wide solutions, where the district's schools work together as one and being able to problem solve how can they deal with the achievement gap, what professional development courses can we offer our teachers so that they're on par and know how to teach the new standards in science and mathematics. So, I want the board that's coming up next to take it to the next level, to be able to interact with our community and problem solve the best they can to keep going with addressing the achievement gap and keeping our teacher morale up and positive, and wanting to explore what the community thinks about the items that we look at as priorities, but also getting feedback from them on what we can do better. And then keeping the partnership avenue open when working with city council or other county agencies to address problems that affect us all, that spill over to different areas, but where it's also an opportunity for us to work together as one to address those issues.
Great. I think that's about all we have time for right now. I want to say thank you very much, Jose, for being on the show with us, being on the happy hour.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I cut off, but I'm back. And I was glad to chat with you. So I'm looking forward to the next show, and we're hoping that it goes very well with no cutoffs.
Absolutely, and great, and good luck running for city council.
Sure. If you'd like to find out more, you can find out more at www.jose citycouncil.com. Thank you, Adam.
All right, great. Thanks a lot. This is the happy hour. This is brought to you by me, Adam Cedillo-Glatt, our director Daniel, our director Daniel Negrete, and our tech Tim Erskine. So thank you very much, and have a good night.